Mr. Chairman. I have a few questions also, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, how many websites or applications are under the Meta umbrella?
Okay, so Mr. Chair, if I may, we have Facebook, Messenger, Instagram, WhatsApp, Threads, which is a part of Instagram to a sense. We have our Quest devices, which are virtual reality devices that also have application, and we have specific application for our Meta Ray-Ban glasses that we are now producing together with Ray-Ban. There's a specific application for that. And then, of course, we have the various websites that also operate these platforms, including now Meta AI.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
If you'd like a very complete, thorough, total list, I'm happy to provide that for you in writing.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, my next question is, do you have for example, a study of which is the most to have a content of disinformation and fake news? Which of these the websites or applications have the most? Is it Facebook?
Mr. Chairman, if I may. So thank you. Congresswoman, that's a very tough question to answer. Again, I'll just go back to the kind of place where I started with, which is how do you determine what's misinformation, right? That is not an easy question to answer, but what I would say is
we can qualify it as what's reported, right?
Yeah. So if
is it Facebook? Can you give us? Oh.
Yeah. So if you look at the fact checks that are reported. And now, but I just want to be clear, just speaking of Philippines, right? I believe, and I can check this to make sure that it's accurate after the hearing, but I believe that the most fact checks we see in Philippines are on Facebook.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, my question is, how do you ensure that there are no disinformation or fake news that are being disseminated in, for example, in the Facebook platform? Previously, my colleague said that she reported the fake news, the AI-generated content. Do you have a mechanism of removing a content if it's disinformation or fake news motu proprio? For example, if it's not reported and it's being generated, so those are two different things, right? One is reported and one is not reported. If there's no report of that, but it's an AI generated and it's a disinformation or fake news kind of news.
Mr. Chairman, thank you, Congresswoman. The fact checkers that we work with, the third-party fact checkers, have the ability to, and they do very often, fact check content even if we have not reported it to us. So the answer is yes. And I would say, I just reiterate, from earlier in my presentation, that whether a piece of content is AI generated or not, we would still treat it the same as misinformation.
So there's a form to. If there's no report, you can actually flag it as a disinformation or fake news, right?
Mr. Chairman, if I may. Yes. So let me talk about all the different ways that this can be done, right? First of all, as your colleague showed earlier, a user that's scrolling through Facebook can report something if they believe it's false information, and that would flag it for our systems so that we would have a look at that and potentially pass it on to a third-party fact checker. Also, we ourselves have the ability to look at content that we see going viral, and if we have reason to believe that that would be a potentially harmful piece of misinformation, we can send it to the third-party fact checkers. And also, the third-party fact checkers can and very much do fact check misinformation on their own without any prompt from us or anyone else.
Yes,
And I would just like, sorry, and I would also just stress that the government also has its own reporting channels to us. So if we get a report of misinformation from Comelec or DICT or other agencies that are onboarded to our channels, we will also review that and pass it to the third-party fact checkers.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, I have here an example of the fact check, example of the fact check image. This is from Digsan. If you think this is normal, then you are abnormal. Hashtag Quadcom, hashtag Duterte, hashtag NPA, hashtag HOR, hashtag Philippines. And there's an image of the three of us. It is alarming to see our leaders being questioned by NPA affiliates. The House of Representatives tolerates this, and it is very disturbing. So, Mr. Chair, it was fact-checked by Rappler, and the claim was it's false. No, so this is an example of how the Meta does it, right? I don't know how you fact check, for example, how you take down, or what is your standards on taking down the AI that is not being fact checked by this by Verifiles, by Rappler, by those that you've actually mentioned before.
Mr. Chairman, Congresswoman. In the presentation I gave, I highlighted that we have a three-pronged approach to misinformation. We remove the most harmful misinformation if we believe that it can lead to, and we can independently confirm that it can lead to offline harm and violence in the real world. We will also do that in the case that it violates certain types of elections law. With misinformation that does not meet that threshold, we will use our third-party fact checkers to check if indeed that misinformation is false or partially false or missing context or any of those kind of labels. And if the third-party fact checker does confirm that it's false, then we will reduce the distribution of that content on our platforms, and we will put a label on it so that someone who sees that content understands that they are looking at content that has been determined by a third-party fact checker to be at least false or partially false, or as I said, there's a number of other labels they can apply. I showed an example earlier about what that would look like on our platforms. And so when it comes to AI, I think the important thing to reiterate is, number one, that whether a piece of content is AI generated or not, the misinformation policies still apply. Right? They apply across the board. So if there is a piece of misinformation that's generated by AI, it's still going to be the same misinformation policies. Now, there is one additional point to make, which I mentioned previously, which is that if it's a paid piece of content, if it's sponsored, if it's an ad, then there are additional checks that we do, and we require that whoever has placed that ad or boosted that content disclose that it is AI generated, right? And then you'll also be able to go into the ad library and see the details, and these are all publicly available, of who placed the ad, how much was spent on it, and so forth. And if these ads are politically, if they're political in nature, if they are about the election, about a campaign, about a political candidate, if they're about social issues, then they have to go through our authorization process for running political and social ads. That adds another layer of authorization and verification, so that means that, sorry?
I mean, my question is, how do you control this? Diba? You have the controls, you have the technology. How do you control this kind of I am asking this, Mr. Chair, because we are always the victims of red tagging, and it is a danger to our life, liberty, and property. And we all know that those are actually false contents. But it keeps on proliferating in the internet. Right now, even right now, as we are speaking. So I'm asking the Meta, how did they do that? Is there, actually my next question is about how many disinformation have you had banned or removed? Or how do you control this fake news or disinformation? How many are based on complaints? How many are initiated by your platforms, for example? Those are questions that I would like to be, answered.
Mr. Chairman, first of all, Congresswoman, I think the issue of red tagging is one that we take very, very seriously, and I would express my sympathy to anyone who's been the victim of that. That's obviously a very, very, very difficult experience, and one that I would certainly not wish on anyone. I would just like to emphasize that red tagging violates our policies. We view red tagging as a form of coordinating harm on our platform, and that is prohibited. When we're made aware of it, and we confirm that it's red tagging, then we will remove that content. We've done that in many, many cases for a number of years now. And I would just emphasize again that does violate our policies, and we will remove it when it's reported to us. So I would encourage you or any other victim of red tagging to send a report to us via COMELEC, via DICT, or the other channels that we have with the government, and we would review that with the utmost urgency, given the potential for harm. Your second question was about fact-checking, I believe, right? And I would just say that when it comes to fact-checking, there's a publicly available library, and we can share that with the committee of the different types of fact checks that have been placed on our platform. Just recently, I think we've seen a number of different issues that have been covered by our fact checkers in Philippines, and again, I think those are all publicly available, and be happy to share a list with the committee. But anyone can find that also, as they're all online.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to be clear, in terms of red tagging, you act through complaints. For example, you mentioned the ICT, you mentioned COMELEC. So if there's no complaint, you don't act on it.
Mr. Chairman, if I may. Congresswoman, we would act on it if we were, in any case that we're aware of it. If a member of our internal teams finds it, they would act on it even without a report. So I do just want to make that clear. I think that we do very much benefit from the reports we get. I mean, it is hard. I think one of the things that we know about red tagging is that, and I kind of mentioned this before, there are different types of content. When we look at violations of our community standards, there's the type of content that very clearly violates, it's not even close, it's a clear violation of our community standards. The really obvious examples are child exploitative imagery, terrorism, graphic violence. I mean, it is much easier to moderate that kind of content. When we get down to the level of speech, and red tagging is one of these issues, it sometimes can be nuanced, right? Now, it doesn't mean we don't take it seriously. We take it very seriously, right?
You have guidelines on that.
We do absolutely have guidelines on that. We absolutely have guidelines on red tagging.
Red tagging per se.
Sorry?
Red tagging. Do you have guidelines for that?
Yes, we have guidelines on red tag. And Rob, do you want to add anything on this point?
Just say in general, red tagging often involves doxing, which puts people at risk. So that would be a red line, for example. But I think, again, to emphasize, as Rafi's made clear, this is often very nuanced. But that's why we have what we call the trusted reporting channel. So when we get information from DICT, from Comelec, from your good office, from law enforcement and others, they're treated with great deference and treated with great priority. But doxing, putting people's lives in danger, that's obviously a red line for us.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, knowing how bureaucratic and to an extent slow the processing of legal actions in the Philippines, we are more concerned on your mandate and mechanisms as Meta, as a multinational technology conglomerate in terms of taking action on these matters, no? From fact-checking and ensuring the veracity of contents and users, taking down posts and banning users that proliferate disinformation and red tagging, up to instituting protections to users so as to allow for a healthy and humane interactions and discourses on your platforms. That is what we're expecting.
Mr. Chair, thank you so much, Congresswoman, for the opportunity to discuss these important issues. And we absolutely share the objective of making sure that the platforms that Meta operates in the Philippines are safe ones. And so that's why we're here. That's why we're having this conversation. And we're always, always happy to take more feedback, to look at things that if the Congress believes we can do better, we're happy to take that back and see what can be done. And I think, as Rob said, I would just emphasize, please do utilize the reporting channels that we have established that are very well functioning with the government, with DICT, with the law enforcement, with Comelec, to address these issues. Anything that can lead to the potential for physical harm, we treat with the utmost severity and urgency.
To share, maybe they can help us in the data. For example, how many complaints have they received? How many are initiated by their platform? For example, the total numbers, at least, no? If we can have that idea of how they actually took an action on those complaints.
But that would be a substantial number of complaints. I don't know if you'll be able to submit the data to this committee. I mean, well, maybe as far as the Philippines is concerned.
Mr. Chairman, thank you. We do put out transparency reports that look at how we have handled government requests, and so those are readily available. I believe the last one we have out right now would be for H1 2024. I can check on when the next one is coming, but beyond that, I'm happy to discuss with the committee, I think more in private, about how we can potentially share additional data around how we have acted on government requests.
Mr. Chair, with your indulgence, might I just add to that response? I really like the fact that you said, I believe, was it humane and fair? I think that's very, very well put. I want to make it very clear that we are not in a reactive-only posture when it comes to the upcoming midterms. We've been having weekly huddles with meetings that are very multidisciplinary and cross-functional at our, at our headquarters in Singapore. That is largely staffed by our Filipino colleagues. We are firm in our belief that the Filipino election is for Filipinos, and we're doing everything we can to keep it free, fair, and free from interference. And to your point, Madam Congresswoman, humane as well. But as the chair and I were discussing along with Rafi, we've seen firsthand, and this is now my second or third round of elections here in the Philippines, it's a very vibrant, bare-knuckle democracy here. So yeah, it can get pretty rough and tumble.
Yes, Mr. Chair, but we would like to lessen the fake news and disinformation. So we need those data that we really need those data.
Would you
for us to-
allow releasing that data? Would it be proper if this committee would write you an official communication to access those data?
Mr. Chairman, thank you. Yes, I think it would be helpful if you could, as a committee, specify the type of data you'd like to see, and then we can take that under advisement and share what we can, and have a discussion about what type of data we share and kind of what's most helpful to you.
Yeah, okay, we will send an official communication for that data.
Last question, Mr. Chair. Do you have ways to ensure that the same people, for example, if an account is banned or removed from the platform, or the account holder, they can simply make a new one, right? So how do you ensure that the same people will not be able to make a new account? For example, like banning their IP addresses instead of just removing their Facebook accounts. Do you have that power?
Mr. Chairman, if it's so. Yes, so we do have policies against this, which we call recidivism. We can and do, in many cases, try to ban IP addresses. I would say that this is difficult. It's a difficult space because
That in
it's
CSAM, right? In the
Yes.
in cases of child pornography and OSAIC.
Yes, absolutely. For those types of very high severity violations, those people would be banned from our platforms. And we do our best to keep people off once they have been deleted. But what I would say is what we encounter are various levels of adversarial behavior. There are some people, including very well-financed criminal organizations, who are very determined to maintain a presence on our platforms, and that is a hard battle that we fight. We do our best. We continue to fight that battle every day. We do it with the help of our law enforcement colleagues in Philippines and around the world. But it's not always easy. We try to do our best we can. We have also new technology that we use. AI is incredibly helpful and a remarkably helpful tool in helping us kind of try to.
It's also a helpful tool for those who makes this.
Yeah, we've talked a lot today about some of the potential harm of AI, but I think that what I would emphasize is that AI is also the best shield in many cases, right? We've developed AI technology to help moderate our platforms, both at the content level and, as you were talking about, the user level, for many, many years. We're able to delete literally billions of accounts, like the one because of AI. And so those are capabilities that we have. They're always turned on. They're always active. Again, our transparency report does go into the numbers of the billions of accounts that we delete from people like that who are trying to get back onto the platform even though they've been banned, or they're creating spam accounts, or many other reasons, right? And AI is one of the best tools we have in our arsenal to act against that type of work. We're also in the process of looking at other technology, as we long have. For recidivism, you referenced IP blocks. It is something that there are cases where that's possible, but that's again difficult because there's technology that very well financed people can use to even evade that, right? So this is an adversarial space in some cases, and we do the best we can working with our partners in government and law enforcement to keep people off the platform once they've been removed. Rob, do you want to?
Sure, I'd be happy with the chair's indulgence to add some additional context to that. So when we're talking about the use of AI for detection for harmful content, the reason that north of 99% of child exploitation material doesn't make it onto our platform is because of things like machine learning, AI. The reason that the investment scam generative AI issue that was brought to my attention by the Presidential Anti-Organized Crime Commission the other day is no longer allowed on our platform is because we have fed that into our tooling so that it's no longer available. The reason it's a very big step for us to take an entire device offline is because here in the Philippines, there are still places where families share a single device, where internet cafes share a device. So we want to make sure we're still providing voice to people who are lawfully using the same device. We do, however, to your point, have certain absolute red lines. So a terrorist-related piece of content, CSIM, human trafficking. There's no warnings given to users on that. Their accounts are disabled when something like that happens. Or when they post content of that nature is what I should say.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, may we be furnished a copy of the red tagging guidelines na lang? And for the guidelines that they use for determining fake news and the specific timelines for the violations, for example, of the community standards violation, how long does it take?
Is that being addressed to Meta?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
We'll include that in the official communication.
Yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
May I remind the interpolator, I think this would be the last interpolator because the, okay, before we proceed, may I acknowledge the presence of our co-chair, Honorable Jobo Aquino, and Representative Benny Abante. The Meta representatives will have to take their flight at 3 p.m. So can you make your questions concise? The next interpolator would be Honorable Roch Gutierrez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I understand the busy schedule that our resource persons have. I'll try to make it quick. Good afternoon to our dear resource persons. I'd like to direct my questions to the Meta while they're here. Mr. Chair, just very briefly, I hope you can bear with us. It's been, it could be confusing for us, especially. Ideally, we would be tackling this together with Google and TikTok. However, understandably, due to schedule concerns or for whatever reason, you've appeared separately. So we'll be going through this all over again. I hope you could bear with us. Before we begin, I'd just like to verify. So, Dr. Frankel, is it, Mr. Chair, to the Honorable Chairman, can you tell us what you do in Meta?
Mr. Chairman, Congressman, I'm the Director of Public Policy for Southeast Asia.
And you are based in where?
Singapore.
In Singapore. And you are part of Meta, the American company.
So I'm an employee of Facebook Singapore PT Ltd. Meta Platforms is the American company.
Meta Platforms is the American company, the Singaporean company. And Mr. Abrams, to the Honorable Chairman, maybe know your position in Meta.
So I'm one of the heads of law enforcement and national security outreach, handling a large chunk of Southeast Asia. My employer is the same as my colleague Rafi's.
So likewise, based in Singapore.
Also based in Singapore. Okay. Here in the Philippines quite often.
Here in the Philippines quite often. And generally for Meta, although Meta Platforms, the American company, when they operate in Southeast Asia, they would do so through Facebook Singapore. Is that correct?
Every country, sorry, Mr. Chairman, if it's okay. Congressman, every country has a different legal structure. Here in Philippines, we have a representative office of our Singaporean company. It's important to note that that representative office is not in charge of business or operations. It does not do anything involving content decisions, right? Those are really, again, those are undertaken by Meta Platforms.
Mr. Chair, I'm glad you brought that up, and actually that would be my next question. So if you are representing Facebook Singapore, and you are doing these regulatory work in behalf of Meta Platforms through Singapore, I assume for Southeast Asia, what is it that Facebook Philippines, what do they do? If it's not anything to do with the support services or content regulation or the actual business of Facebook, Meta Platforms, sorry.
It's actually it's very much about the business of Facebook. So we have a very robust sales and support team. Our public policy team, who's based here, while not involved in takedown decisions and data disclosure decisions, do work very closely with COMELEC and with DICT and with many NGOs. I think what we're trying to emphasize is that no decisions are made here. Those decisions are undertaken by our our parent entity in Singapore or in the U.S. So this is really a sales and support office that exists here in BGC.
I'd also say there are various programs that we run that are supported out of our Philippines office, including some of those I talked about earlier, which revolve around digital literacy. And the digital literacy programs with Digital Tayo that we've used to train over 6.5 million people. The digital entrepreneurship programs where we've trained over 60,000 micro, small, and medium-sized enterprises. Those are also examples of the type of work that that our local team here has undertaken, and so forth. There's other examples.
And Mr. Chair, just for the record, respectfully, sir, it's Meta Platforms, Inc. that controls all of our platforms.
Okay.
If that's helpful, Paul.
Thank you for that clarification. And in fact, it is more helpful, so we have a better idea now. So Facebook Philippines is mostly in the business of, well, the business, which is sales, and I would assume this is advertising?
Yeah, we're an ads-based business.
So it's advertising. How about Facebook Marketplace? Is that also within the purview of Facebook Philippines?
Mr. Chairman, if I may. I want to check to make sure I get you the totally accurate answer, but I believe the answer is no. I think that Facebook Marketplace is, again, operated by the parent company in the United States, but I do want to qualify that by saying I definitely do want to check to make sure that's correct.
Thank you. So I hope you understand where our confusion is coming from. So I would assume that Facebook Marketplace would be part of the business end of Facebook. So we would assume that that would be something within the purview of Facebook Philippines, considering that there would be regulatory requirements under the DTI and such.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, this is where it does get a little complicated, right? I mean, to be clear, so there, there's no commerce that's taking place on Marketplace, right? And so but it doesn't mean that we don't comply with local law, right? We, as a global American company that lives up to the best legal standards in the world, we always want to comply with local law. So just because any of the platforms are being operated by an American company doesn't mean that we still won't comply with local law.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, absolutely agree with you, and we are not implying any disregard for local law, but precisely I think if you've been listening to our fellow colleagues here, what we're driving at is accountability, which goes beyond just the legal requirements. So I hope you understand where we're driving at with this and why I'm asking these questions. We aren't implying that you aren't following local law. And in fact, we do appreciate all of these efforts that you've done above and beyond the legal requirements that we may have, such as your public outreach programs that you may have, and your facilitating the requests of some of our stakeholders in government. However, I hope you understand that what makes it very difficult for us is that when we have problems, it's very hard to reach Meta Platforms, Inc. So understandably, we are of the position that if we have any problems or anything that we have to relay, we have to go through Facebook Philippines. But as you can see from our previous hearings, they've been tossing us around left and right. We go to Facebook Philippines, they tell us to coordinate, they have no involvement with Meta Platform Inc. We go to Meta Platform Inc. and they say that, no, we're an American company, we won't be going there. So we're now trying to understand, for our purposes in crafting legislation, what legislation can we make given the very specific, special structure that social media corporations tend to have. I hope you understand, because generally what we're trying to regulate here now is within the purview of publication, for example, media. But unlike media, which would operate specifically within a country, we're talking now about, a foreign entity that would now be in the business, not just of, public expression, but also the commercial side of it and advertising. As you said, you're a ads-based business. So now we'd like to just differentiate. So going back to my question, I hope you'd bear with that. So Facebook Marketplace is not with Facebook Philippines. Facebook Philippines deals with the public outreach programs that you mentioned and the business side. So anything that has support for the Meta Platforms Incorporated in relation to content regulation and, for example, double-checking terms of use, if compliance with terms of use, these are not within the purview of Facebook Philippines. That much is clear, correct?
Mr. Chairman, if I may. Okay. Thank you Thank you, Congressman. And now I understand where you're going with these questions. So let me just clarify again. The platforms, whether it's Facebook, Messenger, Instagram, Marketplace, they are operated by Meta Platforms, Inc. in the United States. So for the purposes of these hearings, we are the people that can come and address them. And I just want to clarify, and by the way, also, if you would like to have further discussions on regulation that you're considering, we're happy to do that. And I also just want to really, really clarify and emphasize a specific point. We always intended to come to these hearings. I really do want to make sure I say that and repeat it because it's very true. We always intended to come to these hearings. We needed a little bit of time to make sure that me and Rob could get here. The other times, the dates we were given, there was just very short notice and we had other commitments. We both have profiles that are regional. And so there was always an intention to come to this hearing and answer your questions and demonstrate the accountability, which we absolutely agree you deserve. We know how important our platforms are. We know that they service the vast majority of Filipino people. We know that they're used for commerce, for social connection, for business, for government affairs. We know how important they are. And we believe that we do have the responsibility to show up and answer these questions. I would also just point out there's a lot of other various forms of accountability that we have. We publish transparency reports that look at how many government requests we've acted on. We have 11 different channels for the government to report to us community standards violations or request data or any other problems that they're having, if there's account hacks or anything like that. There are 11 different channels that we have set up with various agencies of the Philippines government and law enforcement, we're accountable to every single one of those channels and agencies. And beyond that, I think that, we try to do the best we can to answer the questions as forthrightly as we can, to explain frankly, very complex and sometimes nuanced issues the best we can. And I'm always happy to do more of that. And if there are additional conversations we need to have on these topics, on regulation, we're happy to do that. I also just want to point out, and my colleague Rob has already done this, but I'll reiterate it. We know the election's coming. We have been preparing for this for a very long time. In the 2022 elections, Comelec gave us an award afterwards for the collaboration that we had and for the work that we did protecting the integrity of the elections on our platforms. We absolutely are doing that work again, and I just want to assure the committee that that's the case. Do you have anything you want to add?
Mr. Chair, with your indulgence, I would just add, sir, and with a little bit of humor, but this is absolutely fact-based. My WhatsApp says otherwise in terms of an inability of Filipino agencies to get a hold of me. I think my last message last night before going to bed was a conversation I was having with NBI. If you're having an issue getting a hold of us, I think that's something we can pretty easily remedy. The point being, however, that MPI, Meta Platforms, Inc., operates the platforms. Our office here is happy to help coordinate with Rafi and I, others based in Singapore. It occurs to me, while I have the privilege of being in this chamber, I've appeared in the Senate many, many times, so I am grateful for the opportunity to be in the House today. To your point, it is my first time here in the House, but I've had the privilege of representing MPI, previously Facebook, here in the Republic of the Philippines for over 6 years now, and I hope that our relationship simply continues to grow stronger.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, respectfully, and thank you. We appreciate those responses, and we do not doubt that you had the intention to attend, but I just wanted to point it out as an example of how difficult it would be for us to demand accountability. Now, on that question, on that point, that you have 11 different avenues to coordinate with your law enforcement, I hope you understand that's our point. These 11 different avenues are going straight, I'm assuming, to either Facebook Philippines or Meta Platforms, Inc. Is that correct? You're saying that these 11 avenues are going directly to you, right? Through your WhatsApp personally, and you are an employee.
No, sir. I apologize. Mr. Chair, if I may, I apologize for breaking etiquette there. The daily sort of informal interactions that I have with the many alphabet soup agencies here represented, and I say that as someone who 6 years ago would be on that side of the table, your side of the table. Those are not the formal reporting channels.
Right.
The formal reporting channels go to our content review teams based either in Singapore or the United States.
Which is, through the Honorable Chairman, precisely our point. The content regulation is not being done by anyone legally accountable in the Philippines. All of these avenues of recourse that you're giving our law enforcement agencies, they have to go to either Facebook Singapore or Meta Platforms Inc. Or, in fact, Facebook Singapore will only serve as a coordinating office to Meta Platforms Inc., if I'm understanding this correctly. So, can you just correct me if for this statement, that if Facebook Philippines does not control the platform, there is no Meta-affiliated entity directly accountable in the Philippines?
Mr. Chairman, if I may, we're specifically talking about content, then again, the platforms are operated by Meta Platforms Incorporated in the United States.
Precisely. So there is no Meta-affiliated entity responsible for the content regulation in the Philippines.
Correct.
There. Thank you. Thank you for that. Thank you for clarifying, because it seems to us that for us to craft meaningful legislation, we have to take into consideration the fact that there is no legal entity here.
Mr. Chairman, if I may, Congressman, I just want to, I would, if I could, take a step back here. I think that what future conversations that we should focus on are, what are the objectives you're trying to achieve that you don't feel like you're achieving now? I think that we have seen similar requests in other countries, which emphasize a similar point that you're making here. But, you know, I think we've proven through our collaboration that Rob has with law enforcement, through the collaboration that my teams and our other teams have with the government, with the ICT, with COMELEC, you know, that we are extremely responsive, that we get to the important things quickly, that we act on reports from the government and good faith trusted partnerships that we have in the country. And so I think that, you know, as a global platform, we have to have global systems in place. There's no other way we can operate it at the scale of 3.2 billion people every day. So if there are specific issues that you feel like we need to address and do better, let's absolutely collaborate to address those issues. But I can say, and I feel very confident in saying, there's an immense amount of connective tissue between Meta Platforms and all the platforms we operate and the companies that are incorporated under Meta Platforms and the Philippines government as a whole. And that relationship that is broad and deep, both, has produced very strong results in terms of collaboration and in terms of removing harmful content, in terms of addressing misinformation, and as I mentioned before, when it came to the last round of elections, it even produced an award from COMELEC. And so I think we feel pretty confident that we have the right structure in place, but if there are specific issues that you'd like to address and specific regulations that you'd like to work on, we are very happy to sit down and talk to you about those.
Thank you, through the Honorable Chairman. We appreciate that response, but as we mentioned, what we're trying to come up with here is meaningful legislation to curb fake news and misinformation. So